This is the most important next to that. If you ask, how does learning work? I just talked about that an hour ago. For 100 years, there was a standard theory of how learning works. Something happens, you do something, somebody rewards you, you get some food if you're a mouse or a rat or a bird, and then you remember the connection between the situation and the action that was successful. So that's called reinforcement or conditioned learning. And for 100 years since Pavlov and Watson, who were the Russian and American people who studied human behavior in dogs and rats and things, that was the main theory of learning. That theory is already 200 years old because it came from David Hume, English philosopher, and I'm sure that every culture had some philosopher who recognized that in the mind, if two things happen at the same time, they get somehow connected, called association of ideas. So for psychology, from around 1900 until around 1960, the main theory of psychology was two things happen, they get connected. But if you look in my old book, The Society of Mind, you'll see 4 different theories, and they go back to that little slide, which I don't know if it's still there under this. Well, who cares? But you see, there are many ways to represent knowledge. So if something happens in a human, maybe not in a rat or a pigeon or a worm, something in your brain decides, I'm going to make a story out of that. So you're going to represent it as a story with episodes. You're going to put some characters. In a story, there's one main problem usually, or else it's a bad story. So you simplify the thing and represent what was the problem, how was it solved, what were the bugs, what obstacles were you overcome, where was the trouble, and also, what other problems is this like? So, see, one way of learning is to learn a story. It's not just if this, then that. Another way to learn is to represent the structure of something, and I can't find a something. Here's a something. This has a wonderful structure because it's a container that holds water, and I can think of it as being made of 3 parts, a bottom to keep the water from coming out the bottom, and it's got sides. It's a cylinder, but it could be square, and that's to keep the water from coming out the sides, and it has a top to keep it. What have I done? I've represented this in a rather symbolic way as an object with 3 parts, bottom, top, and sides. If it were square, it would be 6 parts. That's a complicated structure. It's not an if-then. So another way to learn is to build a semantic network, a collection of parts with connections between them, and you could say that that's like a bunch of conditioned reflexes, but it isn't. Because in a conditioned reflex, all the connections are the same. But here, it's complicated. This is to keep the water in. This is to keep the water in case it's turned over. Also, this has a screw, and it has a way of fastening so it sticks to that. All this is the same. You know, it's a big story, a bottle. So what I wanted to say is whenever you have a problem like how can a person learn, you don't want an answer. You want 5 answers. And my whole career is based on the idea that if you see a problem, first think of at least 3 ways to solve it. Most people get some idea and they spend the rest of their life. And has anybody ever told you never answer a question correctly? Never give one answer. Don't even think that way. And so whenever you make a theory, it says, be sure to have some alternatives. And if one of them breaks, you'll be able to switch, so you're not trapped. If you think you've got the one correct answer, then you're dead. Because something will go wrong and you'll have no way to escape. And you'll have told people that that's your position and you can't change it. Politicians don't apologize anymore. How did I get to the bottom? I must have pressed home. I'll press end.